All right, good morning, citizens of the realm. So look, I feel a bit close to that camera. Never mind. So what do I want to talk about? Morality. Why morality is important. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna use the Tom Skinner example. Bless his heart, and I'm gonna refrain from mentioning any of the names of people. But look, morality in our movement is really really important. There's a number of reasons why. The first one is that the left are immoral. The left have very loose attitudes towards sex, towards drug taking, towards all sorts of things that we would consider evil. And we're essentially in a spiritual battle with them. So our conduct has to be better than theirs. If we are doing the same things as them, it basically makes us hypocrites and liars, particularly if we're keeping them secret. And the thing is, every time you tell a lie, you warp something inside yourself until eventually you become the lie. Little white lies kind of you can get away with, but big lies, it's like every time you tell a big lie, you create a Horcrux. It's the only way I can describe it. That's what it's like. You're creating another version of yourself where the lie exists and it's separated from the truth, and eventually the truth in yourself disappears, and what is left is the lie. So we have to be seen to be quite moral, right? We just do. There's like kind of no way around that for us. We have to clean ourselves up. The second thing is that this particular movement, which people think it's politics, it's not. It's basically the will of the divine using politics, because politics has been used to invade every corner of life. Had the politics not been so as invasive in the last 100 years, it would have come about in a different form. But it has, the forces of darkness, if you like, have completely infiltrated politics, because, as the Catholic exorcists will tell you, the devil says that the politicians are the easiest for him to get. And it is a spiritual war. And as it increases, as we begin to gain momentum, responsibility will be replaced on the shoulders of everybody. So everyone's position in society will elevate. If you're just an ordinary board who doesn't speak on the internet, then people around you in your personal life will come to you to ask what's going on for understanding. And as the responsibility escalates, so does the pressure, right? Now, you can look at this. I tend to look at things from a spiritual point of view. As pressure increases, as the stakes get higher, it's at that point that the chinks in your armor will be revealed. It's at that point that when the pressure pushes down and the public are beginning to lean on you, that all of your transgressions will come to light. Right? This is actually where the Catholic confessional is a good thing. So darkness only exists in shadows, right? If there are no shadows, darkness cannot exist. The confessional doesn't absolve you of your sin. What it does is it allows you to expose it so that it is less possible for it to be used against you at critical moments. That is the point of the confessional. You're then given a penance, which is like a token gesture that you give up some of your time to pray, and in your sincerity and solemnity of prayer, some of your transgression is lessened. But the transgression is still there for you to overcome. You still have to pay for your sin. It is just lessened somewhat, and it can't be used in a way that belongs to the devil, basically, to the darkness. It will be used, the transgression will be brought to fruition and to heal and to payment in the light of the divine, not the light of darkness, right? So let's just take the example of Tom Skinner. Obviously quite a complicated situation. People fall in love with other people, and people fall out of love with the people that they fell in love with originally. And Tom has known his wife for a very long time. I've been with my wife nearly 25 years, and I can tell you that you're not always in love. You don't always like each other. It's just what it is. But as my grandma said, you made your bed, you lie in it. So we have to get rid of this notion where it's always going to be fireworks and it's always going to be roses, because it isn't. And we're not always going to align, particularly when you've been together that long, or you've known each other very long. When you get to your middle age, you are two different people. You're two different people. You've grown up, you've changed. Life has changed. The experiences, even if they're shared experiences, they change you in different ways. And you have to, and if you're very busy, particularly if you've got children, you are so busy that you don't ever get to take the time to check in and relearn each other as you're going along. It's this constant process of just, where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? But at some point, you'll find yourself go, oh, I don't know you anymore, and I don't really know you anymore. Okay, we need to spend some time to get to know each other, and that's very, very important. But I also understand that some people get to that point and there's no more road left to run, and they decide to go their separate ways. What you shouldn't do is live in the shadows. You shouldn't continue on living that life in the shadows. You have to kind of try and fix it. You make a decision, you fix it or you leave it. And if you do create a second life that is living in the shadows, it will come to the fruition at some point as the pressure in your life applies. And you can look at it two ways, just from the simple fact that if you have a mass, and the mass is like that, and you start putting pressure on like this, then the shape of the mass that is contained like that is going to spread and split like this, and it's just going to go all over the place. That's one way of looking what happens to people's private lives when public pressure and responsibility gets applied. Another way to look at it is just simply that the forces of darkness know what's going on. They're going to wait until you're at a critical juncture. They see that you're becoming important. They see that you are becoming a bastion of light, and they will just simply wait until the opportune moment of destruction to bring you down. That is another thing that happens. Second thing I want to talk about is drugs, specifically cocaine. If you're on this movement and you're taking cocaine, then and I'm not gonna judge people. I know why people end up taking drugs for all of the reasons. I'm not going to judge people for taking drugs. I will judge you for staying on them even though you know what it does to your wider community. Okay, that's the bit that you need to reconcile with. But if you're taking cocaine and you're in this movement, you're essentially a hypocrite. And the reason is, one of the things that we're working against, and the West is working against as a whole, but particularly in Britain because it's been so pernicious, is radical Islam. Now, there isn't a bag of cocaine within this country that probably hasn't come from some jihadist poppy field somewhere, that hasn't drifted through various Islamic jihadist drug dealers. And even if you're buying it off Kev, right? Kev's buying it. Kev is downstream or is buying it directly from either an Albanian or a Afghani or Pakistani drug dealer. So the very people that you stand up and you say you want to stop in society, the very cancer that you say you want rooted out of society, radical Islam, you're funding, you're paying their paymasters. Okay. In the case of the Albanians, they're using the money to open the Turkish barbershops and cafes and bars and restaurants, and they're shoveling profits from the drug trade and human trafficking trade, which includes migrants, and shoveling foreign girls and English girls into sex trafficking and prostitution. Okay, so all of these things, you're funding all of these for your 12 hours of high, you're funding all of this, right? For your one night out with the lads and a couple of bags, this is what you're funding, right? If it's a Pakistani or Afghani, then you're funding rape gangs. You're literally funding the destruction of your own communities, and there's no way that they're not using this to set up weapons programs, training programs out there. They are literally laughing at you, completely and utterly laughing at you. Now, I'm not going to judge you for doing it. I know why people drink, I know why people take drugs, I know why people do all of these things, and it's generally because there's something inside that's missing and you need to fix that. I would argue that for a lot of people, the thing that's missing is some form of faith, some form of deep, deep faith. But in a lot of other people, it's actually deep, deep trauma that they just refuse to acknowledge and heal. But if you're walking down those two paths, and let's just say you're not having an affair because you just want the fun and the promiscuity, it's all going to come off. The wheels will come off the bus. This is a moral crusade, whether you like it or not. And the people who will get the keys to the kingdom will be those who are the most moral, because the immoral will be brushed to one side, because we have lived with the immoral for over 100 years, and it has rent destruction. And when people find out what people are actually up to behind closed doors, it will make the public turn away from them. Now, you can do, if you're not in a position of responsibility, you can do whatever the hell you like in life. Like, you really can. And if this is you and this is hitting a chord with you, I'd say we've got about 18 months to get our skeletons out of the closet. Okay? That doesn't mean that you make a public video. It doesn't mean that you write a statement and put it on Twitter. It means that you find somebody you can trust and you unburden yourself. Because every lie, every hypocritical action is like a stone on your back that's just going to crush you at some point and destroy everything around you. Everything you've built, everything you've worked for will be destroyed. So I would say we've got about 18 months to get our houses in order, to clear things out. If you're spiritually inclined, you ask for forgiveness and strength. Now, mistakes are going to happen. You're going to make mistakes, right? Somebody once said to me, if you can walk through life without making an error, then God hasn't made it hard enough for you, right? Because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to foul up, and that's how you see where your weaknesses are and you can improve them, right? That's why I don't buy into these lovey-dovey, happy-clappy, we have no fights religious communities, because what's the point? I grew up in an Irish Catholic community where everything was spoken about immediately. Nothing got left out. You vented it right there and then, and if you were wrong, you sat down afterwards, you know, oh, I was outlying there, I need to do better. And it's through that process of constantly having your errors revealed that you improve, you temper yourself. You become like steel, okay? So I would say that, I'm not judging people for doing these things. I understand people fall out of love. I understand the temptations of the flesh all too well. I'm a man that grew up in the 90s and the 2000s. I think any Gen Xer knows that we went from quite a sterile environment to one that was just saturated with just the most insane imagery. And now the access to that content is just, it is a drug in itself. I understand why people do drugs and get addictions. I come from a family who struggled with alcoholism for a long time. Not my own personal parents, but my wider family have all had their struggles with these things. I get it. Like I do. I get it. But what I'm saying is, draw a line under it. This is the way you've been living. Draw a line under it. Speak to somebody that you really, really trust. Get it off your chest. Kneel before God. That's the most powerful thing. Kneel before God and just say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Help me. Help me to do better. And he will help you. He will. He'll lighten the load for you. But you have to take the steps, right? So I would say we've got about 18 months. Let's just get it out in the open. Find somebody near you who you can do this with, who isn't going to judge you. Get it out in the open. Straighten your life up and walk straight. Because what Jordan Peterson says about lies and lying and how it breaks you is absolutely true. And if you get elevated to a position of authority where people are looking at you and you're being this hypocritical, it will literally fold back in on you and you'll lose everything. It'll devastate you so much, like so much. So don't do it, man. Just walk straight. Walk straight and your life will just be so much better. It'll be so much better. If you're not walking straight, you kind of got one foot in hell and one foot in the ordinary world, and you're just going to get ripped in two. You can't straddle two boats. You can't. And this is a moral crusade that we're on. It's not that we're going to burn the immoral people or anything like that. There'll always be acceptance and there'll always be opportunities for redemption and salvation. But it's that the country needs ran by moral people once again, because it hasn't for about 120 years. And we need to make sure that moral people govern this country once more. So that's my thoughts on that. I'm not judging people. I think particularly if you're using drugs, you're funding your own destruction. You're funding the very thing that you speak against. You're funding the rape. You're funding the Albanian gangs. You're funding the Pakistani drug dealers. You're funding the Afghanis. All of this is being partially funded by you. You are creating part of this problem. Stop it. Just stop it.